able to complement the session that has whoop, uh, that complements the session that was held 2 weeks ago, I believe, with Service Canada and Ministry of Finance folks in that as well. So I'm going to try really hard not to repeat any of the items or as little as possible. There is a small slide deck which we're going to start with, and that just to kind of get through those. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you live to the canada.ca website and the pages and links in there. Please note these are up to date as of today, and that's so if you go to them at a future date, something may have changed or gotten updated. That would be the most accurate information to be able to get. And if you have any questions, of course, by all means, do contact us at one of the official numbers. Please, as we're going through by topic, if you do have a question particular to that topic, as Michelle mentioned, you can either put up your hand or unmute yourself to ask the question in that moment before we move on to the next one. If you just have a general question and you want to type it in the chat so that we can take it up at the end and talk about it at the end, that would be great, just so you don't forget about it. I tend to forget things quite often or get squirreled kind of easy. And so, yeah, we can do it that way as well. But there will be kind of an open session at the end if you happen to think of something where we can do that as well. Let me see, is there anything else? I don't think so. So what I am going to do, I'm going to turn off my video and that for the presentation part in that, and then I'll turn it back on at the end, only because then it doesn't affect me being able to see anything in here as well. So let me do this first. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to share my screen. And as I said, we're going to go to the slides first. Oops. Okay. So as mentioned, this is intended for international students, but of course, a lot of the information will be relevant to students in general or just simply citizens in general. So I know you guys have had the conversation about how our tax system works, the multiple different levels and ways that taxes are paid and what those taxes are used for. And that which of course is a lot of our infrastructure, so whether it's roads or hospitals or education system, but also the benefits and credits, right, that a lot of people in that rely on. So if you have children, of course, you'd be very familiar with Canada Child Benefit and that, but also things like our climate action incentive payments, our quarterly GSTC payments and that as well. And so all of these things are all of the taxes that we pay in whatever way go into one big pot that are then distributed down and shared throughout the country for citizens that are eligible to receive those based on their family net income, their marital status, and their residency situation. So residency, of course, though, is one of those big issues. And of course, if you're in the province of Ontario or in the country for education purposes and that, a lot of times people will confuse the issue of their citizenship status rather than their residency status. And what Canada Revenue Agency is most concerned with is, are you a resident for income tax purposes? And I know they went over this, they should have in the presentation before. And so it's basically, have you established residential ties, right? And that's so have you arrived here and are you planning on staying here? And that during the period that you're studying. Beyond that, do you have a family? Have you got a spouse or children that you've brought with you as well? You've probably, rented an apartment. Have you created a bank account? Have you established those types of ties and that? Or is it that you're here just for while you're going to school and then you're going back home or you're going elsewhere, right? So if you're not sure, those links that are on the screen and that will help you to determine that. And if after reading all of those, you're still not sure, you can fill out a form in that, and Canada Revenue will review your situation and then advise you so that you know, because this will then determine, do you have to file a tax return while you're here studying or do you not? Okay. So as I talked about, right? It's the whole, that's one of the biggest questions that we get. And it's not just from international students, we get it from a lot of people. And so the most important thing, if you are determined to be a resident for income tax purposes, you must complete a tax return, of course, if you have to pay taxes, meaning you have employment income where taxes are due and payable, and that's so you need to file that return. But let's say they've withheld extra taxes or other deductions off of your pay, that perhaps was more than what, based on the total income, you'd actually be responsible for doing. You're going to want to file that tax return in order to get those funds back, or to be able to make sure that you're eligible and receiving any of the benefit and credit payments, like I mentioned, right? CCB if you've got children, GSTC, climate action incentive, all of those types of things. And if you're a non-resident in that, there are different situations with that, but I'm just going to stick to the fact that under the premise that you are deemed to be a resident for income tax purposes and you will be filing. Okay. So I am going to take you to the website later and we're going to walk through all of the different ways that you can file, when it's important to, and different options with that as well. It's important to remember that when you file that tax return, though, that you do include all of your world income from all sources, and that. But the important thing to remember is it's earned income, right? And so if someone is, if your family is sending you money to help you with your living expenses, that is not considered income, employment income in that way. Okay, we're only talking about, so let's say you're doing some kind of contracting work for someone outside of the country and it's actual employment income, that is what you would include in that way. And of course, to be able to work in Canada, but also to be able to get any kind of government benefits and services, you do need that social insurance number, right? Please remember, it is unique to you, should not and cannot be used by anyone else. Please don't carry it with you. Keep it somewhere safe, perhaps with your passport or any other documents and that, because you can't use it for ID. Right? It doesn't have a picture on it. It doesn't have your date of birth on it. It doesn't have, your address on it or this type of thing and that. So there's really no reason to carry it with you on your person. Keep it somewhere safe, because if you happen to lose your wallet or wherever it is that you do keep that information, that is something that is very important if someone was wanting to commit any kind of fraud or this type of thing and that using your information. Okay, the social insurance number is what definitively defines and attaches to you. I will be going over on the Canada.ca website the details about where to get, what paperwork you need, and this type of thing as well. But it is Service Canada that is the department that administers social insurance numbers. And so if you have any questions at all, they would be the people in that to be able to get in touch with as well. If for some reason, though, based on your the reasons why you're here and you're studying or where you've come from, if Service Canada says that they can't issue you a social insurance number, there is a form which you see on the slide where Canada Revenue Agency will issue you an individual tax number so that you can file that tax return. And if you are deemed to be a resident for income tax purposes, you can still file that tax return and possibly be eligible to receive different benefit and credit payments. Okay, so there is a workaround if for some reason there's an issue with Service Canada being able to issue you that SIN number right away. And of course, we are going to talk about not just getting ready to do your taxes, but we are a month into our 2022 tax filing season. Generally, taxes are due on April 30th or by April 30th. This year, it falls on a Sunday, so you actually have until the Monday, May the 1st. So it would be the first business day after April 30th if it falls on a weekend. The other important thing to remember with this is the fact that if you have come to Canada and are studying and you have a spouse or a partner, each of you file your own individual returns. And that goes for anybody that has to file a return here in Canada. Okay. You may have heard the term about filing a joint return, or I know in some other countries and that around the world, and that it is one person that would file income tax type information on behalf of the entire family or the whole household. That is not the case in Canada. Each individual needs to file their own tax return. And so, based on your marital status that you indicate on the return, if you say you're married or you're common law, this type of thing, there is an area in there for you to input that information about your spouse. So they'll ask for your spouse's social insurance number, their first name, and their income as well. And so what's going to happen is if CRA sees that when you file your tax return, they're going to go looking for your spouse's information separately because that's filed separate, even if they have no income. Okay. Each individual needs to file their own, whether you have an income to report or not. Okay. So if in a lot of situations, and that it's one person that is earning the income, the other is not. And so it's very common for us to have returns that have zero income with it, even though they're married or common law. Okay. So it's very, very important that you keep that in mind because it can, if only one person with the income files their tax return and the other spouse does not file their tax return, forgets or doesn't think they need to, because the other, the main breadwinner has, put their information and said they have zero income, it can stop payments that you may be relying on. So if you have children, right, it's a monthly payment that you would be receiving for the children for child benefit. Those payments could stop until the spouse's return that has zero income gets filed, processed, and then we will catch you back up again. So it is really important to keep that in mind and make sure that each one is filed separately. We are going to talk a little bit when we go to the web pages and that as well about filing prior year returns, and we'll get into a little bit of the details with that as well.
We just have a couple
And
of questions, Amy.
please, yep, you bet.
So we've got one that just wants to check. We're on slide 3, right? They just want to check that it's not frozen.
Oh, I'm showing I'm on slide 8 going to 9. Is it frozen?
Yep, it is.
Oh no. Okay, let me stop sharing and see if I can share it again.
And we also have another question. Someone got their tax refund in their bank account yesterday. Does that mean
Nice.
their tax return has been filed successfully?
I would say yes, absolutely, that it does. You should also be receiving your notice of assessment probably within a week's time if your direct deposit went in already, because generally, if you've got direct deposit and if you don't have My Account, the online service set up, it will follow the notice of assessment will follow in the mail as a paper copy afterward. So, but if you do have My Account, you should be able to see your notice of assessment through there today as well. Okay, let me try and reshare this again. Oops. Can you see, are we on slide 8?
Yeah, slide 9, I see now. And we've got a couple
Slide
more
9.
questions.
Okay, yep, for sure.
So one I'll answer, yes, the recording is going to be available after the presentation, and Amy's also going to send me some resources that I'll email out to anyone who's attended. You'll be able to find it on the international website and probably the Student Central website as well. And our second question, if I'm an international student who is only studying here and don't have any job or any income and just studying, do I have to file for taxes?
It would probably be worth your while to file, depending on how long you're going to be here to study, because you may be eligible for things like GSTC and the Climate Action Incentive and that if you're staying here throughout the period, even in between your semesters and that, whether you're working or not.
So basically it's worth it because there's free money to be had.
There could be, yeah, Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I wouldn't call it free money, but yes, you may be eligible for benefits and credits. And the thing is too is that even though you may not have a job and you're working here, right? You are paying taxes, right? Whether it's on your Tim Hortons or your different supplies that you need to buy here, right? Or through different rent, depending on where you're staying and this type of thing. Those are all monies that are being paid into the system. So depending on your income and your marital status in that, you may be eligible to receive some of those credits in that and get that to be able to put towards your living expenses and school expenses. So yeah, I don't see it as free money. I see it as kind of a give and go, with or give and take with the system.
Okay, we've actually got two more questions again.
Okay, sure.
So, where can I find the right forums to submit or someone to help with the tax filing, even if paid service?
We will cover that on the web pages. Yeah,
Okay.
so let's park that one until we get to there.
And then there's another one technical question. When we enter the total rent paid for the year, do we include the
Mhm.
rent deposit, last month of stay in that, or just the current ones for that tax
No,
year?
I would just put the current ones. Not that it matters, because it's not like you're getting a percentage of the rent that you're claiming in there, right? What happens with the Trillium benefits is it looks at, do you have a minimum amount of rent that you're paying? And then they base the eligibility on your income level. And that it used to be that you could claim an actual percentage of your rent, but that was, probably like 7 or 8 years ago that they changed that around. So yeah, but I would say you're just claiming the rent that you've actually paid, because that deposit would technically be used for the last month where you're going to be staying there, which would be in the future.
Okay, one more.
Okay, sure.
I landed here on December 25th, 2022. When should I
Okay.
do my taxes? Do I have to do it before May 1st as well?
Yes. And that though, yeah, there's not going to be a whole lot for you to be able to have on there, but yes, if you have a social insurance number that you can do that with, absolutely, I would say that you could file them. So
So overall, if they were here at all in the year 2022, no
2022.
matter how
Yes.
short of a time, still
Yep.
file?
Yep. And especially if you know that you're going to be here for a while, right? So, and because if you're going to be here studying for a couple of years or this type of thing, mostly because it's how our benefit year gets paid out. And I hope that they covered this in the other presentation, but I can also show you on the web page as well where to find the information on it. But so we're filing income taxes right now, and the deadline being the end of April for last year, right? So it's 2022. And Canada Revenue Agency then takes all that information, does all of the calculations for all of the different benefits and credits based on that. And in July is when we start paying out the new benefit amounts based on the 2022 information. So that means starting in July, going through until, so July of 2023 through until June of 2024, that's technically all based on 2022 income tax information. So there's a bit of a delay and a lag between when the benefits are paid out, what they're based on, and when we actually file. So that's why I would say if you landed here before the end of the year 2022, then absolutely file that tax return, because that's how CRA will get the information about you. Now, let's say though somebody had arrived here in March, like this month, right, and is going to be here now for the next couple of years studying, and that what they would want to do is once they've been here for 90 days, they're not going to want to wait to until next year to file the tax return for 2023, depending on what their situation is and with the residency, and if they have children, let's say, or something like that, they're going to want to apply. And there are paper ways of applying for things like a GSTC credits or child benefit or that type of thing, because you want to do that as early as possible rather than waiting for the tax return. The tax return filing will just ensure that all of those continue, and year upon year, right? Once you apply the first time, you don't have to apply again. It's all done based on the income tax return being filed. CRA looks at all the information, recalculates it all, and then sends you a notice letting you know what you can expect to receive. Does that make sense?
So just to be clear then, a student who was in a January start this year, then they're not going to
Yes.
file 2022 taxes, but they still want to get an
Yes.
early start on their 2023 taxes. So they can take
Not their
advantage of all those
not their
benefits.
yeah, not their tax return, but they may want to apply for GSTC credits if they're single, but if they have children, they would want to fill out the Canada Child Benefit application form and get that in rather than waiting until this time next year to file the 2023. Right? Because if they landed here in January of 2023, they wouldn't file 22 because they weren't here. Right? They actually arrived here in 2023. So there's another way to apply for those benefits if to be eligible, and that prior to just doing it through the tax return.
Perfect, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. No
That was our
problem.
last question, so you're good to
Okay.
continue.
Awesome. All right. So can everybody see on slide 9 then? A few ways to do your taxes?
Yep, you're good.
Yep. Okay, perfect. So as I mentioned, we are going to go to the webpage and that shows this. There are ways that you can do it yourself, and I'll show you the certified software and the different options of how to find things in there. We do have free tax clinics, which I know we talked about in the last one, the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program, or CVITP, and so depending on where you are located, I know Jintu had asked if I could put a list of the clinics that are available in each of the locations, whether it's Aurelia or Thunder Bay. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that, but only because different clinics may change what they're able to provide based on their volunteers. Like if all of a sudden they have an influx of volunteers that are available, they may change their hours or what's available or this type of thing. Or a new organization may come in that was just a little bit late in registering. So I would really recommend that you go to the webpage, and I'll show you where to find it as well. Again, just to find the most recent and up-to-date clinics that are available based on what you'd prefer, right? You can get help from a friend, or you can go to some place that will charge you and advertises to prepare and file taxes for you, and that's always an option in that as well. And of course, you can file on paper, old school tax package, and you can get them off our website. But I would say if you're a student, you're probably very familiar with computers and technology and software, and I'm sure you would find it much easier and faster to get a software that you can just download and be able to do it yourself. So as I talked about the free tax help, we will cover that as well. This one just talks about the tuition enrollment certificate. So this is something that you're going to want to ensure that you have for when you're either filing your own return or getting it done at a clinic or somewhere as well, because this will help with the credits that you're able to claim on your return. And I believe most of the post-secondary educations through your student portal, you're able to download that as well. But the important thing to remember is this also gets sent to CRA. So if for some reason, there's any conflict or there's a change in that with it, do make sure that they have submitted any kind of change to that to us, because this is how we verify your information as well. So just like any other employment slip, a T4 slip or a T5 slip or anything like that, this also gets filed with Canada Revenue Agency as well. Unused tuition and education amounts. Again, this is often very helpful if you have a spouse that's studying, but you have another spouse, or perhaps a student is studying in that and they're living at home with their parents, they can transfer up to $5,000 of that tuition amount to someone else to be able to claim to reduce taxes that are owing. Or if you just happen to be single and you're by yourself, you can hang on to it and carry it forward for years where you do have employment income in that to be able to reduce those taxes payable at source as well. Again,
Sorry,
another reason why. Yep.
your screen's frozen again.
Oh, for goodness sake, not on the tuition and education amount?
Nope, you're still
Dang
on
it,
slide
what?
9 for us.
What is going on with this? I'm so sorry, guys. Um, sorry. This is seriously annoying. I'm wondering if it's just my MiFi. Forgive me. Oops. Maybe I'll do it this way as well, because yeah. So the unused tuition and that. Let me know if it freezes again, and that
Will
even in
do.
this format. Yeah.
And
Okay. Thank
actually,
you.
would you mind just scrolling through the other slides just so they'll be in the recording?
Sure. Yep. Whoops. Let me do this. Okay. So there's the tuition and enrollment certificate, the T2202. That's the one that gets filed with Canada Revenue Agency. The free tax help I said we're going to cover in that as well. And as I said, we are going to also I'm going to provide the slide deck in that to Michelle as well, so that will be available uh, afterward in that as well. This one is another big one too that there's often questions about with the T4As with regards to scholarships or bursaries and stuff like that. I would recommend that you read the information if you do have an amount, if you received a scholarship or bursary, because it's not a given that it's something that you would claim, right? There is an eligibility depending on the type of study, if you're a full-time student and this type of thing, that even though this slip will show up with CRA and on your file, if you're a qualifying student, that it's not claimed as income. Okay, so be sure to read the sections on our website about it to make sure that you are claiming it properly. Okay, if need be, or ensuring it's not included if it's not. Okay. And of course, like I said, the most important way to keep getting your benefit payments, and that is to do that tax return every year. Once most of the programs in that, it isn't something that you actually have to apply for, right? It's just done as an annual review from filing the tax return. And of course, if you've moved or if there's any kind of changes to your situation, your marital status, most especially, because that can affect um, the amount of the benefit or credit that you should be receiving. We see this a lot when people get married or if they start living together and have had a child together. You are immediately considered now no longer each two singles, but a married couple. And a lot of times people get overpaid in benefits because they're still receiving it based on that single status and that, whereas it should have been recalculated, and then one or the other will end up owing monies back to CRA. So if there is a change in your marital status, please do contact us as soon as possible, and that just so that there isn't an overpayment situation. The other thing too is you don't want to delay in responding to any letters from Canada Revenue Agency, because it could be that you've applied for something or sent something in for an adjustment. If we need additional information, we will contact you for that. If we don't get a response back, though, it may be that we disallow something that you have claimed, or just park the application of whatever it is. Okay, so if you're not sure what it is that we're asking for, please call the number that's on the letter. There's usually a reference number as well, so that you can have someone pull up your file in that and be able to assist you directly with that situation. Okay. We have, of course, a huge gallery of different videos and that for newcomers, which covers international students as well. We're going to go through the learn about your taxes and that, which has some really great information in there and really great resources, more so. And so I'm going to show you about the forms that you need to complete when you start working for someone as well in there. Digital services, of course, the government, most government departments are moving into this day and age with being able to use more technology as long as we're able to keep it safe and secure because we are dealing with personal and private information. And of course, that's one of the big things with really being aware and preventing yourself from being a victim of scams or fraud, right? So using things like autofill, direct deposit, of course, as we said, fastest and best way to be able to receive any money from any government department, to be honest. And that's one of the other things to remember with the scams and fraud is the fact that there's only two ways that the government will send you money, either direct deposit, if you have already set that up, okay, and we have no need to verify your information before we send you a payment. Okay, we will go with whatever information is on file. If you've changed your bank account and not let us know, we won't know about that unless the payment bounces back. But we won't call you to say, oh, we noticed that there's something funny in that. Could you please confirm your information? No, we won't do that. Okay. We will wait for you to call us and say, hey, I didn't get my payment, right? How come? And then you can update your banking information with us because you've initiated that call. So it's either direct deposit or check in the mail to the address that we have on file with you. That's it. We do not do e-transfers. We will not send you a text or an email with a link for you to deposit your refund at all. We do not do that. We will only either send it to your bank account if we have the info, or we'll send you a check in the mail. Okay. And of course, yeah, all the scam stuff in that too. And I will show you, along with the protecting your social insurance number information, where to find more information on our website about protecting yourself from scams too. Most important thing with us, though, is the fact that uh, if you, let's say you did get an overpayment for something or you owed taxes or that kind of thing, please keep in mind the fact that CRA would have no use for anything uh, of you paying off that debt with a gift card or Bitcoin or a prepaid, iTunes card or anything like that at all. We also will not say that the police are coming right now. We won't threaten to have you arrested. We won't threaten to send the sheriff or to deport you. Okay, that is not something that we do. If we will try to contact you, by phone or by letter mail or this type of thing and that. But there are processes that we have to go through as well, and those are not tactics that we use nor approve of. Okay. The other thing too is the fact that we have no reason to know your credit card, your bank account. Yes, on that. If you call us and that for something, we may ask you what bank you bank with and this type of thing to verify who you are. But again, you have initiated that call to one of our official posted public phone numbers, but we have no use for your passport. Okay. So when you think about the information that you put on your income tax return to identify yourself, those are the types of things that you could reasonably expect a CRA officer or agent to ask you about, okay, if we're contacting you. Because again, as I say, the protection of your personal and confidential information is of utmost importance. So we will ask questions to ensure that if you call us and you're wanting to make changes, that we are as confident as possible that you are actually who you say you are. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing this and we're going to move to the web pages now. Oops, if I can get
So
out of
Amy, I
this.
just want to check with you
Yes.
then. Would you say it's best practice if you have any doubts at all to just hang up on whoever it is and call the CRA yourself?
Yes, I would. Not even necessarily to hang up, get as much information from them as they're willing to give to you. But if they're in any way at all being threatening or very aggressive and this type of thing, and that absolutely you can hang up. And depending on what it is that they're saying is wrong or what the issue is in this type of thing, and that make a note of that and then call our number. And you will be able to speak with someone who would be able to look at your file. So if they say it's got something to do with a child benefit application or you were overpaid for something, first of all, think to yourself, did I even get that money, that kind of money, or did I even get that type of benefit or payment or anything like that at all? Does it make sense, right? And so if it's something obvious, then and for a fact, like you don't have children and they're saying that you got overpaid for child benefit. No, that's just not possible. But just to be safe rather than sorry, I would always say give us a call. right now our phone lines are very busy because we're in the middle of filing season. We get that. But let's say someone calls and says, oh, you just filed your tax return and you owe this much for income tax things. We have automated lines where you could just check whether or not you have a balance owing. Go back to your tax return, see what it was that the bottom line was, right? You should know, did you have money owing or did you actually have money back, so that you can rule those types of things out very, very easily. But never, ever, ever give out any of your information if you are not absolutely sure that the person is calling from where they say that they're calling from. To say to them, you know, even if you think, well, it could be true in that, get their information, say, I just need to verify that you are who you say you are, and then I will call you back, right? Hang up the phone, call one of our numbers and make sure first.
And we've just got one more question before you move on.
Sure. Yeah.
So someone was just checking through the eligibility criteria for the GST HST credit, and it says you
Okay.
have to be at least 19 years old to be eligible. So
That's
certain
correct.
students who are 18 now, but will be turning 19 this year, would they be
Mhm.
eligible for that criteria?
Yes, after they turn 19, and this is one of the reasons why we really encourage young people in that in the year that you turn 18. So, like you just said, right? So, someone's 18 now, but they're going to turn 19, let's say in September, right? You want to file the tax return that we're filing for right now. Because, and even if you have no income, right, you were still in school, you're still living at home, you know, there's really nothing to you other than putting you on getting you in your information into the system. Because the GST payments are paid out quarterly, so the first one will be in July, then the next one is October, January, and April. So if you turn 19 in September, the July payment, our system will look at it if you filed your tax return and they'll say, oh, nope, sorry, you're only 18. You're not eligible for the July payment. But you turn 19 in September. That October payment, you will now be eligible to receive, and CRA has your information, so they will know that. So you may be eligible to receive, based on your income, payments in October, January, and April. Okay, so you don't have to wait until after you turn 19 to finally file a tax return. We encourage young people at once they turn 18, file the next tax return that's coming due in that to be able to get that information in.
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome. No problem. Okay, so let's move over to. All right. So this is the Canada.ca homepage. If you Google this, this is what will come up. A ton of information, but this is where pretty much all federal departments land if you're looking for something from them. Oh, excuse me one second. Pardon me. And so from here, depending on what it is that you're looking for, right? You want to do a passport, you want to do your taxes, you want to find a job, they will split you up into the different program specific areas from here. And so what we're going to go into first is the social insurance program. So as I mentioned before in that, Service Canada, who is a subset of Employment and Social Development Canada, is the one that oversees the social insurance number program. One of the important things that they have with these pages, of course, it will take you to the page that talks about protecting your social insurance number. So who can ask for it, who shouldn't be asking for it, what to do if somebody asks for it and you don't think that they should need it, and other ways, like, so if you think that, you know, your SIN number has been used by somebody else, what those steps to be able to do. If you've forgotten it, if you've lost it, right? If you find somebody else's with there. But under the application part, it will tell you in here, depending on what your situation is, okay, what you need to do in here, okay? Actually, give me one second. I went to a wrong spot here. Who needs a SIN? So this page here, and I love the way that they've broken this up like this, Nat. But so it has information, right? So if you're a temporary resident, and that which a lot of times international students fall under, right? It explains to you what it is, maintaining your status during the processing and that of it as well. If it expires, it automatically takes you to pages and that to be able to cover those information. And again, if you have any questions about this at all, please do contact them directly with it. And you can either go in through here or it should have, and forgive me, I hope that nobody's getting motion sick from me moving around like this. But on here, so it'll tell you, right, the required documents that you need, how to do it, if you're applying by mail or in person, right? The fact that you need original documents, when you can use digital copies, all of these types of things, even, you know, if you require translation and that for someone to be able to give you a hand and this type of thing. So there's all kinds of really, really great information under this website to be able to walk you through what you need to do in that way. Okay. Any questions on that at all?
None so
No?
far.
Awesome. All right. So the next one that we're going to go to is the learn about your taxes. And in here, what I'd like to draw your attention to is um, this program has been set up in that for a lot of different audiences, but the fact that they're broken into lessons with which give you, they've got little quizzes, right? You don't have to do all of that just to be able to get the information that you might need. Oh, sorry, hang on one sec. And you'll notice in here on the right hand side, it has the students and income tax information pamphlet in that as well. So throughout here, you will see different resources and information as well as in the programs itself or in the inside the lessons. So it'll take you right through, right? All the depending on the topic and that, you know, why you need a SIN or a tax number and that, and then things like when to fill out a TD1 form, which is a personal tax credit return. So inside of here, it will explain the purpose of it, how to fill it out, and that what the information is that's required, and that with it, the most important thing though with the TD1, and I'll show you because I popped over to it from the resources. Once you're done the lessons, it opens these up on the right hand side. Everyone has what we call a basic personal amount, and this is the amount of income that you are able to earn, and that through employment before there will be any taxes owing. Okay, so even if, so let's say you worked a part-time job while you're going to school and this type of thing, but you only made $10,000. Okay, and it's mostly during the summer because you know that's when you have the most time. So you're working basically full-time hours all throughout those summer months, and you make the $10,000, but the payroll system for your employer doesn't know that you're only working those months, right? They think that you're going to be earning that kind of income all year long. So it's going to take things like income taxes off based on how often you get paid and how much you're earning in there. So at the end of the year, when you get your T4 slip, it could be that you only had $10,000 that you made, but maybe you had $1,000 in income taxes withheld. Okay, that you're going to want to get back. That's why you're going to want to file that tax return, because that $1,000 will come back to you as a refund. But we won't know that until it's the end of the year, December 31st. We take a look and see how much income did you earn in total for the year. Nope, you don't have any taxes owing. So then CRA will send that money back to you, because that money taken off your paycheck is submitted to CRA, and that on your behalf because of their responsibility as your employer, right? So they send the money into the CRA, then they send your T4 slip in, right? And they say, okay, yep, that all matches up. Then you send your tax return saying, but I only made $10,000, so I don't have taxes owing on that money. So now you got to send it back to me. And that's how that kind of process works in there. Okay. So this is the federal one. And depending on any other deductions that you may have available, you can make note of them and check this off so that there's even less income taxes coming off your paycheck every payday. But the other thing to remember with this form is if you're working for more than one person, so let's say you have two part-time jobs going. At job number 2, you want to make sure that you check off this box for more than one employer or payer at the same time, because you only have that one $15,000 basic personal amount. But let's say you work the 2 part-time jobs and you make $10,000 at each one, okay? But you filled out this form and you didn't check that more than one payer that I just showed you on the page 2. Each job thinks you have $15,000 to be able to earn without income tax coming off. So if you earn $10,000 and neither of them took anything off because you were just working a little bit throughout the year and it wasn't high enough, in the pay period to deduct any income tax off, it's very possible that you will now have $20,000 in total income, but you have zero income tax taken off at source because each job thought you had $15,000 to be able to go with that. Okay. So that's why a lot of times that people that work multiple jobs will say, oh my gosh, I worked so hard and I did all of this and now I owe taxes when I file my tax return, because the 10,000 at each place adds up to 20,000, but you only have that one $15,000 basic personal amount. Okay, so you now have $5,000 in income that didn't have income tax at source that now you're going to be needing to pay taxes on. Okay, does that make sense?
Yep, sounds good.
Perfect. Okay. And then, of course, in each province, they also have a provincial TD1 version as well. So for here in Ontario, because their tax rate, their income tax rate is different at a provincial level. So the basic personal amount is always different than what the federal one is. But you'll also notice when you see the tax forms, which for Ontario, it's usually a pink form if it was paper filed in that. But when I show you on the software, you'll see there's these extra forms where it's a different um, tax calculation rate on your income than what the federal amount is as well, and it coincides and lines up with that basic personal amount. Okay, but so usually the provincial amount and the federal amount, the 15,000, they don't match up. Okay. So I really do encourage you and that to check out this, learn about your taxes and that for other information that's available in there. If you're curious, just about completing a tax return, it goes through it, what to expect after, and lots of other really great information in there. And send us in feedback, of what you think about this tool and that, because we've got a short survey on there, and we're really trying to make it user friendly for many different audiences. So we would love to hear if you like it, what you think could be better, maybe other topics that aren't covered in here, or as you went through this, it was like, oh, well, what about this? I would love to know more about that. We would love to hear that kind of feedback from you.
We have
So this
one
is, sure.
question.
Yep.
What tax forms should we include? Can you give their names if we're only a student and do not have a job?
Yes, yes, I will show you when on the certified software, and I'm going to show you file very quickly in that as well, the pages in there so that you can see it. So this one here, the getting ready to file your taxes, this is right off of our website, and that as well. You can see the breadcrumb trail and that to be able to get here. The only thing that I wanted to highlight on here is the fact it does have all the key dates right for you. So April 30th is a Sunday, right? So it even tells you about the May 1st payment dates if you're owing taxes, to be able to make sure keeping things up to date, and that with it. If you need to file a previous year, so let's say, like we were saying, you arrived in Canada partway through a year, you didn't think you had to file an income tax return that for that year, but you filed it years after. It's never too late to go back unless it's longer than 7 years ago, because the system only allows you to go back so far. But if you go back, so let's say it was 2 years ago and you didn't realize that you could apply, or you should file a return for that year, you can still do it now. You can still do it electronically, or you can do it on paper. It's up to you. And if there were any benefit or credit payments that you would have been eligible for that year, we will catch you up with those as well. So you never really kind of miss out on anything unless it's been older than 7 years, and so I just wanted to highlight that part. But as you can see in here, so it'll talk about ways to do your taxes, right? And so from here, it will take you can choose a filing option. And so let's say, okay, I want to see about software. Okay. And it says in here, processing time typically within 2 weeks, unless you've got something really wonky with your return, or um, Yeah, I can't even think of any other reason. Or we have a major glitch, let's say, something goes down with our system and that. Yeah, within 2 weeks, definitely. 10 business days from the date that you filed to the date that you can expect if you're getting a refund, it going in your bank account. Okay. Yeah, and if you've got direct deposit, of course. So it takes you then to the page for certified tax software. It runs you through the different information, but you can see on here, right, net file and that. So it says to you, you can go back to 2017 right now electronically. You can go back 2 years further if you file on paper, but that's only because our system is we only have the capacity to be able to file so many years going backwards electronically. It talks about the access code, but this is more the part that I really wanted to cover is the different types, right? So we have them under different categories. So this is a free or pay what you want. Pay what you want, meaning they will solicit the software company will solicit donations. It's a if you really like this software and that, please consider contributing to help us keep improving this or keep offering it this year and making it free for everybody, right? So they're kind of soliciting for donations that way, or it's just outright free. Okay, and then depending on the platform that you want to use, do you want it for a desktop computer? Do you want it on an app? Do you want it to be online on their website? For security purposes, scams, fraud, for me, I never use anything that's online. I'm not much of a tech person. I'm a little paranoid in that way. But if you feel comfortable with it, by all means, please keep in mind all of these have gone through a security and safety check with our systems to ensure that they meet the security and encryption um, requirements. Okay, so there should be no issue as far as we're concerned with you using this. But then there are the different desktop ones that are available for you as well. But then as well, you find paid software with free offerings. So the free offerings means that let's say your income is under a certain amount and you have just a basic return. A few of these, and depending on which one you wanted to use, will allow you to use it for free. But let's say you put all you download the software. So like let's say it's a desktop one. You download the software, you put all your information in, and then your income is say like $40,000. They may then prompt you to say, in order to continue and to file your return using our software, you now need to buy a license key to activate the software. So you would not be able to electronically file using that unless you get that key. And it can range anywhere from $12 to and up from there. I've seen with it, but a lot of the ones that started initially years ago being completely free, now that they're more popular in this type of thing, they are asking are requiring that you buy a key for their software if your income is over a certain amount. So the one great thing with it is feel free to download if you talk to your friends or others that are using it in that you can download whatever you like based on what you need for a platform. Take a look at them and see what you think of them, right? Is one a little easier, more user friendly, or you just like the setup a little better than another in that? And if you don't like it, as soon as you open in that, you can just uninstall it, right? And that there's no requirement to continue using it and that at all. Okay, so there's a lot of different ones. Studio Tax, even H&R Block has got online ones, right? TurboTax, and that as well. What we do though is, and hopefully this will come up, we use UFile for our CVITP program. And so there is a UFile that's available for the public and that as well. So if you like the look of these types of things, or if you're familiar with it, if you've seen it, you can definitely download these to be able to use it as well, right? And it's all really based up in a very relatively simple and intuitive way, right? It starts with the identification. Family head just means, so if you're single, you would be the family head. If you're married, you decide who you want to be, the first person as the family head, the other person being the spouse. It really makes no difference whatsoever. And that it's there's no inferred anything in that with it. The other thing that is in here is, and I wanted to show you. So I'm just going to skip a little bit here. So the different types of information slips that you may have, hang on, I'm going to just scoot that down a little bit. it will ask you and you can pick and choose. But after you've done like the ID part and the interview setup, they call it, right, where you're putting in all your information, it will prompt you with these types of things to say, do you have employment income? Do you have rent? Do you have children? You know, this type of thing and that. And then it'll automatically select these for you.
Sorry, Amy, you're
Amy?
frozen
Yep.
again.
Oh no. My U file even is frozen? I'm so sorry. It's got to be something with my MiFi for some reason. All right, let me stop sharing. Okay, so what I may have to do is actually try and take some screenshots of it, and we'll go from there. So, and then I'll just send it with along with the references and that, if that's okay. So, oh my goodness, I just realized it's 2 minutes to 1. Okay, sorry. Why don't we go to questions, because I've really kind of covered everything, and I know you guys covered the link to the free tax clinics before, and that. So, is there any other questions and that with it? Did that kind of help a little bit, at least with the software, for you to get a chance to see?
Yes, it did, Amy. I believe
Perfect.
one of the students have a question. They
Okay,
raised their hand, so I will ask. Iman,
please.
do you still have a question? Do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question? Yeah, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question, Iman.
You're still muted.
Yeah, you're still muted.
Or you can just type the question in the chat if you like.
Sure. Yeah, that works too.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I missed the initial part of this workshop because of my class.
Oh,
So
I'm
maybe you
sorry.
talk. Maybe you explain my question. My
Okay.
wife and I landed in Canada on December 15, 22, but my enrollment started at January 2023. And
Okay.
I'm going to ask you, is necessary for us to file the tax for 2022 or not? Because we don't have,
I would, sorry, go
we
ahead.
we weren't eligible to work, so we didn't work anywhere till the end of the year. And I'm just asking, my concern is I missed something if I don't file my tax form.
Right. So if you landed here and you would meet the residency for income tax purposes criteria, I would recommend that you do file it. So if you do have social insurance numbers to be able to file tax returns, absolutely. All you'll have is zero for income, because you wouldn't have had anything. You probably wouldn't have anything or very little for rent that you
Okay.
would have paid, depending on where you were living, right, for that half of the month before the end of the year. But it doesn't hurt to review the criteria, and so we will. Michelle and Jintu will send you these slide decks and all of the resources that we've gone to with the website. And so do check those all out in that. And like I say, there's no harm in doing it, right? The words there that CRA will come back and say is, thank you for your information. You're not eligible at this point, and then they'll advise you from there. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay. You're welcome.
Amy, we have another question. So
Okay.
they're asking for filing the tax through free software. What's the process of creating the account? Do we need any special code or something?
No, you just download the software onto your computer, and you will use at the end of when you've completed it, it will say to you, are you ready to net file this return? If you're doing it yourself, right? And you just follow the prompts with it. And if it's completely free, because, like I said, if you have zero income, most likely you will be able to use that free, completely free one. And you just go through the steps of submitting it. There is no account that you need to. If you if for some reason it fails and you get an error code when you try and transmit it, and sometimes it happens if you're filing for the very first time, and it's not just for people that are new to Canada. Oftentimes it happens with our teenagers that are filing, you know, they're 18 years old and they're filing the very first tax return, right? Sometimes it just won't work. And that from the software, though, you have the ability to print the return. So what you can do is just print off the pages, and it usually gives you an option saying print copies to file by mail, and that just print off those, because it's usually, I think, just 6 or 8 pages that you need to print. Sign the return, pop it in the mail. It usually will give you the address of where you need to send it to based on where you live in Ontario, and just send it in that way. So, because at least then you don't have to redo it or do anything else with it. You've already got all your information there. If it just says, you know, there was an error with being able to transmit it, you know, unable to electronically file, you can go through and do it that way. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks, Amy. I
You're
don't
welcome.
see any other questions here, but I will ask to all the participants. Do you guys have any other questions? Oh, there's another one. So someone is asking if we are receiving money from our source country into Canada for expenses or tuition fees, are they also need to be displayed when filing? And are they subject to taxation?
So I would say it depends on where the monies are coming from. If you're being sponsored through some type of an official program, that you should be probably contacting our office to verify, because depending on where and when, if it's your family that's sending you money to help cover off your living expenses and that, no, that would not need to be covered as income, because it's not money that you are earning from another source, right? They're just kind of helping you out with your living expenses. Okay.
Got it. Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? You can unmute yourself or just put that in the chat and Amy will answer.
And the other thing too is, if you think of something after we're done this session, both Jintu and Michelle know how to get in contact with me in that. Let them know what your question is. They can get a hold of me. I will try and find the resource or the link or provide the answer in that, and then they can share that with everybody as well. Because I know what it's like in the moment. You're kind of like, no, I can't think of anything. And then, you know, tonight as I'm making supper, all of somebody like, oh, I should have asked that question. So yeah, it's not a problem.
So just while we give everyone 1 or 2 more minutes to type any
Sure.
last minute questions, to summarize everything you've kind of gone over, Amy, if you were an international student filing taxes for the first time, what would you most want to know?
Don't be afraid. Try not to stress. We have so many resources that are available to help you, help guide you, to figure out, do you need to? Is it worth the while to? Where can I get help? I just don't understand. Are you sure that this is what it is? There are tons of different places to do it. So please don't stress and that about it. Check out our website if you're not sure. Talk to your student union is a good way in that, or your student advisors are wonderful sources as well. Talk to some of your more senior student colleagues in that too, right? Who do they use? Do they have software of their own? This type of thing. And just don't panic. And it's the same thing really with if you get a phone call and that from someone and I don't care what government department it is, okay? Please don't panic. You do not need to act immediately, okay? No matter what it is that they're saying, if it's from a Canadian government department and that, you do not need to act in that moment. Take your time, take the notes of what it is and that, tell them, you've just caught me at a bad time, right? At the moment, I can't deal with this. I will get back to you, right? And this type of thing. And then just take a breath and that, and spend some time kind of going over it all and that, because it's not something so serious that you need to add any kind of stress to your life. There are all kinds of ways for you to be able to reach out and get help. Okay.
And Amy, if they do realize after they've filed their taxes that they made a mistake, what would they do?
Oh, that one's even easier. Once you receive your notice of assessment, okay, which is the finalized form that confirming that your tax return has been completed, if you've missed something in that with it, all you need to do is if you electronically filed it yourself, you can use a refile option in there to be able to make an adjustment, or old school way, we have something that's called a T1 ADJ, which is a T1 adjustment form. You can get a fillable PDF from off of our website. You can pop all the information in there and just note the line item, what it is that you forgot to either claim as an expense, or maybe you forgot to claim income or something in that with it. You just put that information in there, submit it through to us, and that we will make the adjustments to it and then send you back a notice of reassessment that confirms that those changes have been made. So very easy peasy.
And is there any sort of deadline with that? So once you receive the notice of assessment back, do you have to get back within a month if you realize
No.
a mistake, or?
Nope, nope, not at all. We do, as a department, do run different programs to verify different information, though, because of course, when you electronically file, you're not sending any kind of receipts, right? You're really just filling out the line items. CRA will at different times during the year match up and go through and review and say, okay, Amy filed her tax return. She said that she had this much employment income. So then they go in and they look at my T4s and they say, oh, Amy works for CRA and she made this much money and she had this much in deductions. And so they make sure that all works, right? Because it's possible, we're human. We could typo, maybe reverse a number or something like that. They'll make the adjustments so that it matches to what CRA has. Now, let's say your employer made a mistake on your T4 and you noticed it, right? You would need to go to your employer to make that change, and then your employer would send the changed document to CRA, and then CRA would be able to go through and match that to make it correct to what you had filed it with, of what the proper amount is that you needed to know. Sometimes, depending on what you've applied for, we may send you a letter saying, we noticed that you said that you had $12,000 in rent that you paid last year. Please send us in proof of those payments being made in a few various different ways. That's just to support the fact that our system is based on what we call a self-assessment principle, where individuals are required to report all their income, declare all their deductions, any expenses that you can claim, right? But you need to hold on to all of those receipts for 6 years, because CRA could come back and ask you to show proof that you had all of these different types of things at any given time up to 6 years afterwards. So please make sure that you do hang on to all of those documents. But yeah, that's how we try and make sure that everything is valid in that way. But there isn't any requirement for a deadline to make any kind of adjustments. But if we send you a letter, we generally give you 30 days and ask you to send in, the receipts or whatever within that time frame. Because otherwise, like I said, it could be if you've claimed rent and we don't get the receipts within that time, and you don't call us to say, "Ooh, I need a little bit more time because I'm not at home," or I need to gather it up. It's going to take me 45 days to get it. We'll put a note on your file. But if we don't hear from you in that within that time frame, we'll just close it, deny the rent receipts in that, and make the adjustments. And then, so let's say you never did get the letter, right, in the mail. Sometimes things like this happen. If you call us and you say, "Hey, how come you didn't disallow my rent receipts?" And we say, "Well, we sent you a letter," and you say, "Well, I didn't get the letter," and then they'll say, "Well, okay, well, send us in your receipts and we'll make that adjustment for you." In that, so it's never a lost cause. You haven't necessarily missed out on anything with it. There's always the opportunity to make those kinds of changes, like I say, within a 7-year period, right? So if it's older than that, I'm sorry, you've missed the window of opportunity for those types of things.
And we just have one last question, just in
Okay.
case. If one missed to file before April 30th, is there any way to file tax after that?
Absolutely. You can file, as I said, like even if you were, 5 years after a particular year and you hadn't filed, you can still file that. The whole issue with the filing deadline of April 30th has a couple of purposes. One, if you owe taxes, and that is the date that you have to pay those taxes without any kind of interest accruing on it. If you file your return after that deadline and you owe taxes, you're now subject to what we call a late filing penalty. So that's a percentage of what you owe in taxes that's added on to that amount plus interest. Okay. So it's really a deterrent for, people going years and years without paying their taxes that are due on things and that without any kind of a penalty. It's to provide that compliance in the tax year. The second reason though is we ask for the April 30th because, as I said, our benefit year starts paying out under the new amounts in July, right? So we ask people to file their returns by April 30th. That gives CRA May and June to run all the calculations for whatever benefits or credits you may be eligible for and have that all ready and the notices and the payments ready to start in July if you are eligible. So that gives us 60 days after that deadline to be able to make sure that we've done everything that we need to on our end to be able to have that in place. So that's really the importance of the date with it, but it's not that after that, nope, that's it. The window is shut. You can't file it anymore. That's not the case. Like I say, 7 years. Once you've gone longer than 7 years, then you've kind of missed that window.
And what about the benefits though? So you said the first one goes out in July. If you filed
Yep.
after July, would you miss out on that, or would there be a back pay?
There would be back pay. You would miss out perhaps on receiving it when you were expecting it. So if it was coming out July the 5th, that's the first GSTC check that comes out of the new benefit year, and you didn't file your tax return, you won't get that, obviously. But let's say that prompts you to kind of go, oh crap, I forgot to file my tax return. You can file it at that time, as we said, generally 2 weeks, right? If you file it electronically, CRA gets it, they process it, then they're going to calculate your GST amount, and so you may get the catch-up payment of whatever you might be eligible to receive if you should have gotten something. Once that's been completed, sometimes it can take 6 weeks, 8 weeks afterward, or you may get a double payment in October, right? But we will catch you up on any payments that you should have. That's where I say, like, if 2 years ago you had forgotten to file your tax return, and there was a whole bunch of different initiatives that came out because of the special COVID financial measures that came out that you didn't have to apply for. So like the GSTC top up that came out last year, or that, if we didn't have your tax return for that, if you file it now, we will catch you up on any of those payments that you would have gotten if we had your income tax information at that time. So you never really miss out on any of those, like I say, unless it's older than 7 years.
And we
Make
have
sense?
just one more.
Okay.
Will they be getting this recording? Yes, we will be sending out this recording afterwards.
And again, though, I just do want to say in that all of the information is available on the website. And if for some reason my brain and my lips spoke something that I got it backwards or this type of thing with it, though I try really hard not to do that, whatever information is on the website officially, that is the most up-to-date and accurate information. Okay.
All right, sounds great. I think
Wonderful.
we're out of questions now. So thank you
Okay.
very much for your time today, Amy. You were
Oh,
super helpful. Learned a lot
thank
today.
you. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I will get the slide deck and those resources to you hopefully by the end of today so that you can share that out. And thanks so much for joining, everybody. This was wonderful.
Yes, thank you so much, Amy. I just want to say, like Michelle said and Amy said, the recording will be available shortly. So hopefully by next week, I will be able to put that on our resource center. So International Department, we have a resource center and where we can add the recording and the slide. So, and we will also email them out as well. So thank you,
Wonderful.
everyone. Well, Amy, we'll
Thank
be
you.
in touch.
Sounds
Thank you,
wonderful.
Michelle.
Yes.
Yes, it was a great session.
Yeah,
I learned
great.
quite a
Thank
lot.
you.
Yes.
That's
Thank
excellent.
you.
Glad to hear it. All right. Well, have a wonderful Friday afternoon and a great weekend, everyone. And hopefully we'll see you again.
Yes. Okay.
All
Bye.
right. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.